Greetings, welcome to the Historical Footprints, a platform we share the stories behind the hymns we now love to sing. Today's hymn is hymn 633 in the SDAH HymnLineage, When We All Get to Heaven, authored in the year 1898 by Eliza Edmund Hewitt. This is a hymn that strives to pinpoint the great work of salvation. It gives hope for the hopeless. The meaning of this hymn, it is one that brings a sense of relief in the lives of Christians today. Where is our hope when our plans for earth have been dismantled? Where is our joy when our comforts have been removed? Where is our peace when life seems to be not as it should be? Our hope is in heaven because Jesus has made a way. Now, who was Eliza Hewitt? Eliza Hewitt was born on June 28, 1851 in Philadelphia, United States of America. The record says she had a passion for Sunday school, a passion for teaching, and English and literature inclusive. The record says that from a tender age, this person was sharp. She was scooping high grades in school. Because of her exemplary grades, she had an opportunity to get into formal employment as a teacher. Now, let me just pause here and say, you see, God wants us to be the best in the line of field we are in. God wants us to be the best at school, at church, at home. Wherever we shall be, we need to be heard because God has never created any Christian to be a tail. Genesis chapter 2, verse number 15 and 19. The Bible paints a picture and says, when God had created everything, the lands of this earth, the trees, and everything that was on earth, God brought Adam to them and he allowed Adam to name the things that God had created. That means the mind of Adam was a mind that was not forgetting. It was a mind that was reasonable enough. Child of God, God wants you to be a reasonable Christian on earth. Alright. The record goes on and it says, when she entered formal employment, there was a day when her life changed for the worse. The record says after a few years, her life was changed by a normal day on the playground with her students. The record says at recess, a student carelessly threw a rock and struck Eliza in the back. The impact caused a painful spinal injury which forced Eliza to bed for months as she recovered. Now listen, the record says, I'm reading, even after some progress, she was semi-invalid for the rest of her life with regular pain and lack of mobility. Now the question is, child of God, what do you do when somebody's carelessness leads you to a permanent life of affliction, a permanent life of sorrow, a permanent life of shedding tears? I just want to say, you see, child of God, God had his purpose and plans for this lady. The record says that while she was confined to bed, she felt the presence of the Lord every day. She began taking her time to study literature and English, and this was an opportunity for God to prepare her for the work of writing poetry and hymns. I don't know the situation that, child of God, you are going through, but one thing that I've learned from the life of Eliza Hewitt is that God can use your discouragement for the benefit of somebody. It is so ironic to note that God used a discouraging moment, a disadvantaging moment, a moment of tears, a moment of pain, a moment of affliction for the benefit of a Christian living in the 21st century. Let me just say this, child of God. Your problem can be used by God to benefit somebody in this life. God can use your disadvantage to advantage somebody because He has the care of His children in mind. Some of the popular hymns that she authored were hymns like "Give Me Thy Heart, Says the Father Above," "When We All Get to Heaven," "Sunshine in My Soul," "More About Jesus Would I Know," "More of His Saving Grace." Let me just quickly analyze the passage of scriptures that she uses in the hymn "When We All Get to Heaven." So the first verse says, "Sing the wondrous love of Jesus, sing His mercy and His grace. In the mansions bright and blessed, He will prepare for us a place." Basically, the text that comes into mind, it is John chapter 14 verse 2, "In my Father's house are many mansions." Child of God, there is a space for you in heaven. It doesn't matter what you have done. In the Father's house, there are many mansions. You need to sing the wondrous love of Jesus because you may be pierced today. You may not have a permanent place today. But guess what? In the Father's house, there are many, many mansions. In verse 2, she says, "While we walk the pilgrim pathway, clouds will overspread the sky. But when the traveling days are over, not a shadow, not a sigh." Basically, the text that comes into mind, it is Revelation chapter 21 verse 4. "God shall wipe away all tears in their eyes." That means when God wipes away all our tears, the shadow of death, the shadow of the valley, the shadow that has been making us to sigh, will all be wiped away. She says, "Let us be true and faithful, trusting, serving every day. Just one glimpse of Him in glory will the toils of life repay." Basically, in the third verse, she is looking back at her life and she's basically saying, "I'm looking forward to a time when Jesus will repay my suffering with the blessed joy of His promise." God is willing to fulfill the promises that He has been making to His children. But what matters today, it is His children being true and faithful, trusting, serving one another in love, because just one glimpse of Him in glory, just one glimpse of Jesus in glory, will the toils of this life repay, child of God. I just want to encourage somebody that 2 Corinthians chapter 4 verse 17, the Bible highlights what she's talking about. Child of God, be true and faithful, because one of these days, God will repay you for all the pain you have gone through on earth. The last verse, she takes us back to the mansion. She brings us to a time where we are walking the streets of God. Child of God, from this hymn, I can tell you that either by way of translation or resurrection, God's children will make it to heaven.